Namaste and hi friends, it's Parvati here with Visionary Veda, bringing you this special Vedic astrology report for this December 21st, 2020. In this report, I am primarily going to be talking about the energies that will be at play on this solstice coming up here. And what is happening on this solstice? We have a grand conjunction of our two major outer planets, both Jupiter and Saturn, conjoining exactly on the same longitude, the longitude and latitude. This conjunction that happens so closely hasn't happened in 800 years, okay? But Saturn and Jupiter conjoin every 20 years. They meet up in the sky every 20 years. The difference is they're usually at the same longitude, right? In this conjunction, they're going to be almost like so close, almost looking like they are exactly one star. And this is the phenomenon that hasn't been visible to us in about 800 years. But I want everyone to know that this conjunction does happen on a regular basis. It also happens in different signs in the zodiac. Now, please remember that I am a Vedic astrologer, and we look at where the planets actually are in the sky, okay? That is sidereal astrology. It takes into consideration the exact reflections of the planets, whereas tropical astrology is looking at the sun's movement between solstices. So it looks at the sun's movement between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And where the astrology is different for tropical astrology is that everything is kind of according to where it was 2,000 years ago. So if you look at where the spring equinox occurred 2,000 years ago, it occurred in the sign of Aries. Where it occurs today, if you were to actually look at it, it occurs in the sign of Pisces. Now, a lot of Western astrologers have been saying that this is it indicates the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Now, that is not necessary. That's not, according to Vedic astrology, it is not correct. The reason being is that the age of Aquarius is denoted when the spring equinox occurs in Aquarius. Now, those of you who know a little bit about the precession of the equinoxes or the precession of the ages, right, knows that the earth is rotating on an axis that's tilted, and that tilt causes a cosmic wobble, right? Think of a top that's spinning, and then when the top starts to slow down, it begins to wobble, right? Consider this the North Pole. So the North Pole is moving, and this cosmic wobble is happening and going through each of the signs of the zodiac, which denotes the different ages. Now, this is not the yugas, okay? This is Kali Yuga is huge. We won't even get into talking about that cosmic time cycle on this video. I think I have to make a whole other video explaining the cosmic time cycles of all the yugas, okay? There's 4 yugas, and apparently we are now living in the Kali Yuga. But that's a huge time period. What we're talking about is the precession of the equinoxes. When you're hearing people talk about the age of Aquarius, according to Vedic astrology, that is when that cosmic wobble moves out of the sign of Pisces and into Aquarius. The precession of the equinoxes goes in a backwards direction. So and they last for about, I think, 2,130 years each. If I'm not mistaken, maybe it's 2,150 or 70, but I believe it's 2,130 years per sign. And so we've been in the sign in the age of Pisces, and according to Vedic astrology, when the precession of the equinox changes, it's going to happen in about 400 years, when the vernal equinox literally happens when Aquarius is there, okay? In the time of the sign of, Aquarius. So, having said that, there is going to be a lot of monumental historic change happening, and it does mimic what people might think would be the ushering in of the age of Aquarius. All right, now why is that? There are several factors to that. Okay, the first factor is that this conjunction that's happening between Jupiter and Saturn has in the sign of Capricorn, Sidereal Capricorn, happened 60 years ago. And 60 years ago, that same conjunction happened, not so close like it is going to be now, but in the same sign with the same two planets in 1961, the early 60s. And this, as you all know, ushered in a great cultural revolution, a time of consciousness expansion, a time of mind expansion, a time when the younger generation ushered in turn on, tune in, drop out, right? And they rebelled against the presiding old sort of mentality. The older structures were challenged by the youth, and there was like a renaissance, a cultural revolution of sorts, which forever changed the face of our societies, right? And the way we think, the way we approach things, the way we decided to like the Eastern philosophies came into like the mainstream at that time. A lot of people like turned inward. They wanted to study about the meaning of life, the purpose that they have here in life. What is the purpose here? What, they rebelled against the old established order. So we can see some of that coming into effect after this, or right now actually, this Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. Now, Jupiter in Vedic astrology is the guru, the teacher, the priest, right? The just planet, the great benefic. It is the advisor to the leaders, to the kings and the queens. It's the planet that holds up our dharma, or dharma, if you will. What is dharma? Dharma or dharma is our purpose. What is our purpose for this life? And it is righteous. It is a righteous, just purpose. It's not just for fun or frivolity, right? Or for beauty or for money or for wealth. No, it's for the highest realization of all of us. And this is what we're all here to seek out and uphold, not only for ourselves, but for our progeny, right? For our next generations, okay? It has to be good for our children and our children's children, and thus forth. 7 generations, what we do now will have an effect. We can't just think of ourselves. This is the role of Jupiter. Jupiter rules the 9th house and the 12th house of the Kalparush, or the natural zodiac, or the zodiac personified as a cosmic being, okay? So dharma of the highest spirituality, because it is a sattvic planet. Now, Saturn, Jupiter being the great benefic, Saturn is the great malefic. So Saturn is all about paying our dues and doing the work and seeing the result of our actions. Karma. What is karma? It is basically, as you sow, so shall you reap. Okay? What your actions, the results of your actions and the actions you've taken. It is the limits. It is the older established regime or mentality. It signifies our elders. It signifies our forefathers. It also signifies the established order. Okay, so we've got, for example, the industrialists, the ruling, the people with the money, the big businesses, big established corporations, the way our systems work. It also rules the 10th and the 11th house of the Kalparush. So we've got the ninth house, the dharmic house, the 10th house, the karmic house, the 11th house, the house of innovation, of revolution, of yeah, I don't know the word right now, so we'll go to the 12th house. And the 12th house, the house of disillusion. Okay, so we build our structures based on what we think is right, and then there is a innovation happening, and then there's a disillusion happening. So this is going to be all the themes that are going to be activated in this during this conjunction. Okay, now this eclipse is happening tomorrow. I made another video about that a few days ago, and I could post the link in the comments in the description section below. But this eclipse is also playing into this conjunction. It's only a week away. The eclipse is happening in Jyeshta Nakshatra, in the sign of Scorpio, where we also have Moon, Sun, Ketu, Mercury is right in the middle of this eclipse, and Venus participating. So that will also include the houses that all of these planets rule. So that will include the second house, right, of Taurus, the third house of Gemini, the fourth house of Cancer, the fifth house of Leo, the sixth house of Virgo, and the seventh house of Libra. The only thing not involved in this is the two houses of, well, actually Mars is involved as well, because it's happening in Scorpio. So we've got the eighth house, and then we have Mars, which is going to be moving into Aries. So we've got the first house. So the entire landscape of our reality and all the different areas of our lives are going to be touched by, starting with this eclipse and ending, not really ending, but sort of ending the period of transformation with the full moon happening at the end of the month. This eclipse, I did mention in my last video, is happening in Jyeshta Nakshatra. What I didn't mention, though, which I realized afterwards, were two things. Number one, the moon or the mind gets debilitated in Scorpio. So it's going to be, this eclipse will bring up a lot of our inner anxieties, our inner fears. We're going to feel psychologically and emotionally impacted by this eclipse. Then it's also happening in the Gandanta zone, right? So it's showing a karmic uprooting. And it's going to happen in our psychology. Jyeshta, this pada where it's happening, is the Scorpio stinger. And you've heard me speak about this before. In the Scorpio stinger is the venom, is the poison, right? But it can also indicate medicine. So, you know, obviously what's been up for everybody right now is like this whole debate around vaccines. Is it a poison? Is it a medicine, right? And this is going to continue while Ketu is in Scorpio. Sorry, it's going to continue for the next year and a half, okay? So new moons, which is what this eclipse is going to be, new moons are a time of deep inward reflection, as well as a time to sow new seeds, okay? As soon as the eclipse ends, the sun is going to go into Gandanta. So it's a very potent time to pull out anything or change anything, but get rid of anything that is disturbing you or holding you back or giving you any kind of issue on the emotional and psychological level, whether they be habits, whether they be relationships, whether it be a work situation, a living situation, whatever it may be in your life that causes you to feel this inner turmoil, insecurity, emotional unease. Now is your chance, all of our chances, to be able to take that and get rid of it and replace it with something that we want to see come into fruition, whether it's a healthy way of living, a more healthy way of relating, a healthier way of making a living. These seeds are going to be able to be planted right after the eclipse. Okay, usually you can wait 3 days, but then sun is going into Gandhan, so we're going to get ideas. The best thing to do is to go inward, journal, and see where it is, and pray for whatever it is to leave us, and see what kind of steps we need to take in our lives, and what we need to implement into our lives to be able to move forward. Okay, so that's on the 14th. Then on the 21st, we will have the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. Now, my suggestion would be that after this eclipse, to go out in the night sky and watch Jupiter and Saturn every single evening after sunset. Watch them starting to get closer and closer. Okay, Jupiter is the guru. Jupiter is debilitated in the sign of Capricorn. Why is that? It's because it wants to expand, whereas Saturn wants to put limits, around Jupiter's expansion. So when this happens on the solstice, it is the longest night of the year. It is the time where we can really connect in with our inner guru. Okay, those limits are being put around Jupiter, and it's not a bad thing. It helps to keep Jupiter contained and focused on what it wants to create from the highest, most spiritual vantage point. All right, so my suggestion during the Great Conjunction, it's happening in the nakshatra of Uttara Ashada, okay? But actually, it's going to be touching this nakshatra, the hidden nakshatra of Abhijit. Abhijit, its signification, what it literally indicates is the unbeatable, the undefeatable, the victorious, the most victorious. So between the eclipse, what we want to get rid of, and the solstice, what we want to bring in, right? What we want to cultivate that is going to make us undefeatable. Okay, that's going to really support us in moving forward. These prayers and these intentions will be the most potent. It's a whole week of looking deep inside of ourselves, looking deep within our own darkness, seeing what needs to go, and looking at what we need to bring in. And on that conjunction, doing some kind of a ritual, some kind of intention setting, some kind of a prayer, because the guru, Jupiter, the guru is that which delivers us to God, right? That which delivers us and takes us on the path, clears the path for our highest spiritual manifestation, our highest spiritual existence, our dharmic existence, our righteous place in this world. All right, so we have the ability to tap into that on the 21st. Then, so right after the eclipse, we have the sun going into Gandanta. Okay, so it's going to affect somehow our leadership and those in power, right? So that's going to be on the 14th, 15th, and then Mercury, the communication, right, is going to go into Gandanta. Again, that zone where things come apart, that cosmically unfurl. It could indicate triggers of things that, surprises that we are not totally prepared for. I don't think that this is going to be anything too scary. It just might be strange sort of events that are triggered, having to do around leadership, okay, and authority. And then on the 24th of this month, we have Mars also changing its sign from Pisces going into Aries, and also crossing a Gandanta zone. So this Gandanta zones between Scorpio and Sagittarius and between Pisces and Aries are going to be activated. So this can also show not only a natural sort of disasters, it can show fire, it can show floods, hurricanes, typhoons, volcanic activity. But because it's Mars, right, it can also indicate military activity, some sort of military attack around the 24th, which is Christmas Eve. It's possible, it's indicated, all right? And then lastly, closing out the cycle, we're going to have a beautiful full moon on the 30th of December happening in Ardhara Nakshatra. And this Ardhara Nakshatra is going to, this full moon is going to close out the entire cycle that started a year and a half ago. So that whole cycle of eclipses from last year, right, which triggered all of the corona and all of this stuff that affected us on a global level, that window, that door, that's shutting. Okay, and a new door that's going to be activated with tomorrow's eclipse is opening. The cycles of the eclipses last for a year and a half in one sign. So last year and a half, when these eclipses happened, they happened in the nakshatras of Mula, where Ketu was sitting, and Ardhara, where Rahu was sitting. Now with this full moon, it's completing the cycle because this full moon is happening in Ardhara Nakshatra. For the next year and a half, the whole theme that we need to be aware of that's happening is more like psychological. It's going to hit us in the places that we fear the most. That doesn't mean we need to fear, because when we know that these cycles are activating our fear, we can take enlightened steps towards healing these fears and facing these fears head on. Jupiter, the guru, is going to be the planet that brings this into our collective psyches. You know, Jupiter will give us the teachings, and Jupiter will show us the path out from these fears, okay? But we're going to have to do the work. Saturn, we're going to have to do the work to do it, all right? The last thing I want to touch on is where Pluto is, okay? So Pluto is going to be at 0 degrees. 0 degrees of Capricorn. It's just leaving Sagittarius on the solstice. The last time Pluto was at this degree point was on the solstice, December 21st, 1772. 1772. This was the trigger to begin all the actions that led to the American Revolution, the American Revolutionary War, okay? In 1773 was the Tea Party, okay? It was when the American rebels boarded all the British ships and threw tons of tea overboard as an act of protest and resistance. No taxation without representation. Okay, the Boston Tea Party. So this Pluto being in this exact same point 200 and 270 years later, is indicating the beginning of some sort of a revolution. Now, it doesn't have to look like what revolutions used to look like. It's going to be a revolution taking place on another level altogether. Okay, so a lot of information in this video. Thank you so much for those who have watched it to this point. I hope I haven't lost most of you all, but a quick recap on how it all ties together, okay, and what we can do and how we can utilize these energies. The eclipse tomorrow. It's a good time to really like journal, go inward, do spiritual practice. It's said that any sort of sadhana, any sort of meditation, any sort of prayer, any sort of real internal intentions and connection to spirit that happens during an eclipse is magnified. So take this opportunity during the eclipse tomorrow. Find out what time it is and try and do something spiritual for yourself, because that will reverberate and be exponential and touch the world. It will make a difference, all right? What is it we want to let go of? And what do we want to replace? How do we want to start over? In what area of our lives and how? What does this look like? So then continue doing your inner work for the remainder of that week until the 21st. Try to go outside daily and commune with the stars, with the planets, Saturn and Jupiter. You'll see it after the sun sets, very close to the western horizon. Okay, and then on the 21st, try to see this with your own eyes and do some sort of a practice that connects you to your inner guru, your your higher self, and do whatever kinds of prayers or invocations to bring in the energy of the benevolent Jupiter, so it can guide us through these revolutionary times that are coming over the next several years. And that's on the 21st. Then on the 24th, we have Mars changing signs. Mars is going from Pisces into its own sign of Aries. It is going to be passing the Gandanta point on the 24th. So just be aware of any kind of major sort of crises or catastrophe. It could be fires, it could be floods, it could be something to do with the military. Just try and stay stable on that day, because that might be a very emotionally unstable day. And then lastly, I will do another report on it. We will have a full moon in Gemini in Ardhara Nakshatra that will close out the whole cycle that started a year and a half ago, and help us to usher in the next year, 2021. So wow, what a year. High five to everybody out there for making it all the way to the end of December 2020. We've never had a year like this. So the following year is going to be also full of a lot of good things and a lot of changes, all right? The most important thing to remember is to stay flexible through these changes, stay adaptable. It is giving us a lot of good opportunities to bring in new things into our realities. Be open, be grounded, be loving, be kind, and be happy, and enjoy the life. That's going to do it for me. I hope this was valuable to you. If you'd like to do a reading with me, please feel free to contact me on the email below, and enjoy the rest of this pretty incredible year. Until next time, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.